You know, there are many ways to use basket stamps other than the traditional ways of straight line stamping and angle stamping. In this program, we will do the arrow point method of basket stamping. Whenever I do a arrow point basket stamping, or any other basket stamping for that matter, I like to do a little sample first. In this case, I want to do a 1.5 inch belt, so I've did a little sample here. This is to help me determine, number one, the size of tool I'm going to use, the type of border I'm going to use, and how wide the border should be. Now in this case, this little sample I've made is with a rather large tool, and then you'll notice I have cut the border and stamped the border with two different stamps. First thing we need to do is dampen our leather. Now, to do deep basket stamping, it's a good idea to put quite a bit of water on here and then set it aside and wait a while until it begins to return to its natural color. Since we have already made our sample, we can now take our wing dividers and set up the border. We can now scribe the border on there with the wing divider. Now that our leather has begun to return to its natural color, we can take our swivel knife and very carefully cut this border. In this program, we're going to show you two different kinds of borders, one that's cut, beveled, and then stamped with the border stamp, and the other one will be with stamps only. There are several ways to start the basket stamping in an arrow point fashion. One is to put a guideline down the center, and the other is to do it without a guideline. I'm going to try to do it without a guideline today, so I've kind of made a little mark here to give me some idea where the center is. And because of my sample, I know about what my angle should be, so I'll start with a light impression, as you can see here, and then I will take the next one and overlap it and go to the center. That gives me my angle. Now I'll deepen these two impressions. Now I will continue to stamp. I'll overlap, as you see me doing here, and go to the center. We will continue this way all the way down the belt. Overlap, go to the center. To start the next row, we will do the same thing. Using our sample as a guide, we'll make a very light mark, and now we will take the next one and we'll go from the point and overlap, and this will establish the position and the angle. Now we can go back and do the first one. From here on, it's just a matter of going from the point and overlap. Notice I hit this tool twice. It's a rather large tool, and it's you'll get a better impression if you kind of hit it and then lean it from one side and to the other side. And we will continue this way all the way down the length of our project. Next, we will use a rather large beveler. Largest one you can get a hold of is good, because we're only beveling in a straight line. And we will now bevel on the inside of both of these borders. Now you can see that although we haven't used a border stamp yet, our basket stamp blends nicely into the border. As you can see, as we use the border stamp, it now blends nicely from the basket into the border, and it adds some beautiful detail as well. And this is what our finished piece looks like. For this next project, we're going to use the basket stamp that's shaped like an hourglass, and we're going to use a stamped border as opposed to a cut and beveled border. Now, this being the case, we will need to set our wing divider a little bit different. I want to have my line go in an area or distance from the edge so that when we use the border stamp, it stamps away the guideline. I don't like to see guidelines, so I'm going to set this a little bit wider so that when we use our border stamp, we will stamp away the guideline. And this is another reason to do sample pieces. So we will set our guideline, both sides, and now we will also do one in the center. You'll notice here on this one there's a little swivel knife cut, a decorative cut on there, so now we can send a center, or we can put in a center line. And to do that, I just kind of do it like this and like this. Now we can use our wing dividers and set the center line. Just like we did before, now we can set our tool with the point on the line and make a light mark. And then the second one, we overlap and go to the line. Overlap and go to the line. Now we can go back and do the first one. And now we will stamp all the way down the length of our project by overlapping and going to the line. And now we do our second line just the way we did with the first one. We make a light mark and we go from the point to the overlap, and we'll go back and get the first one. And now it's just a matter of doing the same thing. We overlap, go to the point. Please note now, as I get ready to do my border stamping, I will place the tool so that it goes over the guideline ever so slightly. And as you see now, as we stamp, the guideline will disappear. We're really lining up the line just a little past the gullet of this tool. And now we can just continue stamping to the end of our project. All we have to do to finish this one off is take our swivel knife and make a cut off the point of each one. Just a short cut, set it deep, and then lift it out. And here is our finished piece, all ready for your favorite dyeing and finishing technique. For this segment, I would like to do what we call the two-way arrow point, or it's sometimes called the herringbone So to start this, I'm going to use a smaller tool, and you'll notice I've already cut my border and I have a guideline down the center. Now this is a little easier to start because all we have to do is put our tool on the line and make an impression from corner to corner. Notice that the line runs through the tool from corner to corner. And we will now go all the way down the line. And as usual, as we stamp, the border line or the guideline disappears. Please notice as I stamp, I overlap the legs as far as it will go, and then go to the line. Just like we did before, we will now go from the point, the overlap, and we will go all the way down. Please note I am now putting in a third row on the other side of the center line. I'm putting in a fourth row now, but please note that I'm tipping the tool so that I only get partial impression. I do not want to get any of the impression onto the border line, so I tip it, in this case, to the right, or to my right, and just tap it lightly. Now I'm doing the same thing to the other side, and this will complete our basket stamping. And now I'm using a large beveler, as we did before, to bevel the inside of the border line. I'll do this on both sides. As you can see, I'm now using a smaller border stamp because I've used a smaller basket stamp. This will give it the proper amount of balance. And here's our finished piece of the herringbone style or two-way style arrow point basket stamp. Here's another example of the herringbone style basket stamping that I've used on a billfold back. It's the same method as we used on the belt piece. Thank you for visiting the Leathercraft Library and for spending time with me today on this program. Stay connected to the Leathercraft Library for many current programs and for many more to come in the future.